last year we saw Atlanta kind of, shock the world with their pick at quarterback. Ends up actually working out for them because now it looks like, oh, wow, these guys did know what they were talking about. Kind of by accident, most likely. They still have the weird Kirk Cousins situation going on. How did they kind of, how did their draft pan out? How did they add pieces or maybe ignore, deficiencies on that team? And have they gotten better? Have they taken a step forward to possibly, they beat us twice last year. So, you can't technically say they're not going to be the ones that compete with us, but a lot of people seem to be overlooking them and saying, you know what, maybe the Panthers have snuck up on them. Curious what you thought about what they did in the draft and if they've been able to take enough of a step to not only beat us twice, but maybe actually make a count and not stub their toe and do what they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, had that weird 4-game stretch last year where Cousins was just terrible, whether it was another injury or whether he just was at rock bottom. He had like 4 games where he had no touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and that kind of scuttled their season. I mean, they turned to Penix. That was probably the smart thing to do. I mean, the Penix thing, as much grief as they got for it, ended up being the smarter move. I mean, the Cousins, the money involved with Cousins was probably the mistake, and they were just already catching up to that and making up for it by getting Penix. So no, he's a huge part of who they are, whether they're good or not this year. I mean, it takes a lot. He'll have to have a Drake May, a Bo Nix type impact in year 2 to be, the leader they need him to be if they're going to be a playoff team or a playoff contender. I thought this is like the 3rd year I've been hammering Atlanta that they have to go after edge rushers and hit their pass rush because they've just been ignoring it, neglecting it for like 3 years. And I thought they did a good job. I mean, I wasn't expecting Jalen Walker to fall to them at 15. I thought he'd be gone at like 8 or 9 or something like that. So that's kind of a gift for him to fall to them at 15. I think he's going to be a talented player in the NFL. I think he'll be an impact rookie for them. And then they kind of double down. I mean, it was kind of like the quarterback thing a year ago, and that it's like you got one edge rusher that kind of solves things. And then they give up their 2016 first-round pick to move up from 43 to 27. I don't even know that James Pierce was the best edge rusher available at 27 when they got him. I mean, probably one or two others that people liked. To hear these people that spend a lot of time covering the draft talk about James Pierce, there's some curious off-field concerns in terms of the commitment, the love of the game, those kind of things that you hear Jason Light talking about, being a deal breaker, if you will. So again, props to them for addressing their biggest need. They very well could have those 2 rookies lead them in sacks. If they get 10 sacks and 7 sacks from those 2 guys in any order, that's what they needed because it hasn't been there. But again, the problem is that they didn't have that many picks. I mean, they've used these picks in trades and stuff. So they only had 5 draft picks. And then they, use next year's 1 to move up and get Pierce. So they took 2 safeties, actually like Xavier Watts, the guy they got. When we talked to Benjamin Morrison after the 2nd round, he's like, Xavier Watts is like Ben Morrison's best friend. So, I mean, he was really lobbying, hey, for the Bucs, Bucs kind of could use safety help. Seemed like a potential match for them at 3. And they ended up taking Jake Parrish from Kansas State. But I like Xavier Watts, a crazy amount of interceptions. I forget what it was, like 13 interceptions the last 2 years or something like that. Where when you think about Hawks, you think about things fitting the type of what the Bucs need in the secondary. He made a lot of sense for that. And he, as a 3rd-round pick, could easily be a starter. I mean, they need help at safeties. He could step right in. First 4 picks are on defense. I mean, their only offensive draft pick is a 7th-round tackle who probably, might not make the roster, might not dress. So as much as they've had kind of an offensive tilt to the top of their draft in taking Bijan Robinson and taking Kyle Pitts, taking Drake London the last 3 years, there was almost nothing from the offense in this draft when they could have used a jolt. So no, I think they helped themselves on defense. I think their defense was a problem. Obviously, they've changed coordinators. They've added some talent now. Still some holes probably on that defense, but definitely better. And honestly, I mean, it's one of those where if you can get to the quarterback much more consistently, it's going to make the rest of the defense look better. So to that extent, thought they did well. A lot to give up. You think about if things don't go right for Atlanta, that 1st-round pick they gave up,
very valuable.
Probably a top 15, top 12 pick. They've had a lot of years where they pick 8th. And I mean, I think the Rams don't necessarily love draft picks, but if you get a pick that could be a top 10 pick, now they have 2 first-rounders in a year where they probably take a quarterback. That could really help them move up and be a factor to get the guy they want next year. So for Atlanta, this is kind of a referendum year. If they're not better, if they're not competing, if they're not a playoff team, I don't know if that GM's back. I don't know if Raheem's back as head coach there.
Wow.
They were close this past year.
Yeah, they fumbled the division. It was their division to have last year.
Yeah, I mean, you sweep the Bucs. That second Bucs win. Bucs, I forget if they're 3 back, tiebreakers against them. They need a Falcons collapse to get back in, and that's what Atlanta did. Unfortunately, they just hit that terrible stretch with Cousins, and then they go to Penix, and Penix I think showed some promise in 3 starts, but it wasn't like he was throwing 3 touchdowns every game or something like that. So, if Penix can be there for him, and Penix can kind of be the same kind of guy the other guys drafted around him were as rookies, he has a year of experience. He has a year of being there with that personnel. He knows the guys he's throwing to. But that's what they need him to be. I mean, they'll get, the nice thing is they get a second place schedule. So that's how they kind of were able to stay ahead of the Bucs last year. The Bucs are playing that, just a nasty first place schedule where there's little room for error. And the Falcons are getting the runner up in every division the same way. So I still think of them as kind of being the best challenger, the top challenger. But if you look at power rankings right now, like I think our Fox, Dave Hellman just did his power ranking, and like the Bucs were 9. And I think the next highest team in the NFC South was like 22, to where that's not like last year. I mean, last year Falcons are ahead of the Bucs.
Right.
They're in the 20s somewhere. So this is a little different. This is them maybe for the first time since like the Brady years, that this is them as a prohibitive favorite to win their division for what would be the 5th year in a row, I guess it is.
Yeah, they were the sexy pick last year. Everybody was like, it's Atlanta's division. Atlanta's going to win the division, and Kirk Cousins and in their defense is if Kirk Cousins started against the Bucs all 17 games, this
MVP.
MVP. So I'm perfectly happy with how it's gone down in Atlanta. As long as Kirk Cousins doesn't face us, it could be Penix, it could be anybody. Bring Michael Vick back. I don't care. Anybody.
But Stank, could they have a game plan to where those 2 games they only play Kirk Cousins?
The Taysom Hill thing, right?
A little bit of a Steve Spurrier mindset there. Maybe, hey, listen, we love you, Penix. You're the guy. But listen, against Tampa, we've got the secret weapon. We've got the kryptonite. Kryptonite Cousins. All right, bring him in. Start him against the Bucs. 2-0 every single time.
Every time.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
His numbers last year, it's like 8 touchdowns and no picks against the Bucs, and then everybody else is like
complete opposite, bipolar, exactly.
Something, like almost as many touchdowns in the rest of his season as he had against Tampa in 2 games. So, but again, Bucs know that, I guess.